The moment Ayana opened her banking app that evening, her breath caught in her throat. A $10,000 charge was sitting there. Wedding venue, booked under her name. But here was the real twist. She never planned a wedding. She wasn't the bride. Her own parents had used her credit to pay for her younger sister Nia's glamorous venue. And when Ayana refused to cover it, they called her selfish, ungrateful, and the reason her sister's big day was about to collapse. But what they didn't know was that Ayana had her own shocking truth waiting to explode. Ayana was lying on her bed after a long day, just scrolling through her phone when she decided to quickly check her bank app. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. A $10,000 charge sat there like a heavy stone in her chest. She stared at it, refreshing the page again and again, hoping it was some kind of mistake. But it wasn't. The words "wedding venue reservation" burned on the screen, and her heart dropped even further when she remembered. She wasn't planning a wedding. Her hands trembled as she read through the details. The venue was booked in her name, on her credit, with her information. She whispered to herself, confused, scared, and angry all at once. Who could have done this? Then, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place, the truth hit her. There was only one big wedding coming up, her younger sister Nia's. Ayana's mind raced. She had never given permission, never even been asked. The thought that her own parents had taken her details, used her credit without a word, and made such a huge decision behind her back made her stomach twist. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was betrayal. She remembered all the little things she had let slide before. Times her mother had asked for her bank card, just for something small. Or when her father had told her, "Family helps family, don't ask too many questions." But this was $10,000. Her entire savings could vanish because of a choice she never made. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She knew Nia's wedding was important to everyone, but why was her life, her hard work, her future always treated like it belonged to someone else? Why did she always have to be the one paying the price? Ayana locked her phone and sat there in silence, her chest rising and falling quickly. A part of her wanted to cry, but another part of her was burning with fire. For the first time, she wasn't just hurt, she was determined. This was not going to end the way her parents expected. They thought she would quietly accept it, like always. But this time, Ayana promised herself she would not stay silent. Ayana rushed into the house, her phone still clutched tightly in her hand. Her face was pale, her steps sharp, and the anger in her eyes could not be hidden. She didn't even bother to greet anyone. She stormed straight into the living room where her parents and Nia were sitting. Without wasting a second, she lifted her phone and held it out. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking but loud enough to cut the air. Her mother's eyes flickered for a moment before she forced a calm smile. "Ayana, you're overreacting. It's just for Nia's wedding. You know how important this day is for her." Ayana's chest tightened. She couldn't believe the casual way her mother said it, as if taking $10,000 from her was nothing more than borrowing a cup of sugar. "Overreacting," she shot back. "You used my credit. Without asking me. Without telling me. Do you know how much that is? Do you know what this means for me?" Her father shifted in his chair but said nothing. His silence felt like a stab, like a betrayal just as sharp as the charge itself. He couldn't even look her in the eye. That silence told her everything. He knew, and he agreed. Then Nia leaned back with a smug smile, crossing her arms like she owned the world. "Ayana, stop being so dramatic. You should be happy for me. This is my wedding, the most important day of my life. Families are supposed to support each other. It's just money, and you'll get it back. Why can't you just let this go?" Ayana's jaw clenched so tight it hurt. The audacity in Nia's voice, the entitlement in her words, made her blood boil. "Just money," she repeated, her voice trembling with rage. "Do you even understand what you're saying? You want me to sacrifice my future, my stability, my credit, for a party you didn't even have the decency to ask me about?" Nia rolled her eyes. "It's not a party, it's my wedding. If you truly loved me as a sister, you wouldn't complain. You'd be proud to help." Ayana stared at her, speechless for a moment, because the weight of those words felt like poison. Proud? How could anyone be proud of being used, of being treated like a wallet instead of family? In that instant, Ayana realized the truth. This wasn't about family, or love, or support. This was about entitlement, and she was done being their victim. Ayana stood her ground, her voice firm when she said, "I'm not paying that bill. I didn't agree to it, and I won't let you ruin my future for something I never approved." The words left her mouth like fire, and for a moment, the room went silent. Her mother's face hardened. Her father finally looked up, and Nia gasped in disbelief. Then the storm began. Her mother clutched her chest dramatically and cried out, "Can you hear yourself? How selfish can you be, Ayana? Your sister's wedding is at stake, and all you can think about is money." Her father joined in, his voice low but sharp. "This is exactly why we didn't tell you. You always find a way to make everything about yourself. Why can't you just be happy for Nia for once?" Ayana's mouth fell open. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was the one whose credit was used without permission. Yet somehow, she was being painted as the selfish one. Before she could respond, Nia stood up, her eyes flashing with fake tears. "I knew this would happen. You've always hated me, Ayana. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad support me more. And now you're trying to ruin the happiest day of my life." Ayana's stomach churned. Jealous? That word cut deep. Not because it was true, but because it was the easiest weapon they could throw at her. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and instead of gratitude, all she got was accusations. The worst part came hours later. Her phone started buzzing nonstop. Aunts, uncles, cousins, relatives from every corner of the family began calling her. At first, she thought maybe someone wanted to understand her side. But no. Each call was filled with harsh words. "Ayana, how could you do this to your own sister?" One aunt scolded. "Everyone sacrifices for family. Why are you so cold-hearted?" Another relative shouted. "Stop being bitter. You're the older one, you should set an example," someone else said. By the fifth call, Ayana's hands were shaking. They all believed the lies. Her parents had already twisted the story, spreading it through the family like wildfire. She was no longer the daughter who had worked hard and helped at every turn. She was now the villain, the jealous sister who wanted to destroy Nia's happiness. Ayana sat in her room, staring at her phone with tears in her eyes. For the first time, she felt completely alone. The people who should have protected her had turned her into the enemy, and it broke something inside her. But deep down, a small voice whispered, this time she would not bend. Ayana couldn't rest after all the calls and accusations. Something in her heart told her this whole thing was bigger than just her parents borrowing her credit. She decided to check for herself. The next morning, she called the wedding venue and asked for details about the reservation. At first, the manager hesitated, but when Ayana confirmed her name and personal details, he opened the file. What she heard nearly made her drop the phone. The contract wasn't just under her name, it carried her signature. Except Ayana had never signed anything. Her hands went cold as she asked the manager to email her a copy. When the document arrived, she stared at it in shock. Every detail was there, her full name, her credit card information, even her signature forged in sloppy handwriting that barely resembled hers. Someone had pretended to be her. And the more she looked, the more she realized exactly who it was. It wasn't a mistake. Her mother had done it. Ayana remembered that week when her mother casually asked for her ID, to update some documents, and how she hadn't thought twice before handing it over. That was when the trap was set. Her own mother had taken her information and used it to lock her into a $10,000 contract she never agreed to. Ayana's chest tightened, the betrayal sinking in deeper and deeper. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about trust. Her mother hadn't just gone behind her back. She had lied, forged, and trapped her in a debt she never signed up for. And her father knew, because there was no way such a decision could have been hidden from him. She felt sick as she remembered all the sacrifices she had made before. How she had paid Nia's school fees when her parents struggled. How she had helped keep the lights on in the house when bills piled up. How she had always put family above herself. And this was her reward. Being used like a tool, betrayed like a stranger. That night, Ayana sat alone in her room with the printed contract in her hand. She traced her fake signature with her finger, and shook her head in disbelief. Her own mother had written it, pretending to be her, pretending her life and her credit didn't matter. The betrayal was so sharp it almost left her breathless. Ayana whispered to herself, if my own family can do this, then I have no one left to trust. And in that moment, something inside her heart hardened. Knew she could never see them the same way again. Ayana felt like the walls of her home were closing in on her. Every word from her parents, every smug look from Nia, every phone call from relatives had drained her completely. She couldn't breathe in that house anymore. One evening, she picked up her bag and walked out without saying a word. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she needed space away from the chaos, away from the endless accusations and betrayal. She found herself sitting on a quiet bench at the park near her apartment. The air was calm, but her heart was heavy. She closed her eyes, and all the memories she had tried to bury came flooding back. She thought of the years she had been more of a parent than a sister. She remembered how she had given up her savings to pay Nia's school tuition when their parents said they couldn't afford it. She remembered covering utility bills in the house when the lights were about to be cut off, even when it meant skipping her own meals to save money. There was the time Nia wanted to attend a class trip, and her parents said no. But Ayana quietly gave her the money from her own pocket. Or the time she worked double shifts so her family could have food on the table, while Nia spent freely without a care. Every sacrifice Ayana made had been swept aside, treated like it was nothing, as though it was her duty to carry the weight of everyone else's life. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, a strange calm began to rise inside her. For so long, she had been told she wasn't enough, that she was selfish, that she was jealous, yet she had been the one holding everything together. And still, they betrayed her, used her name, and painted her as the villain. Ayana finally understood something she should have realized long ago. No matter how much she gave, it would never be enough for them. They would always expect more. They would always treat her kindness as weakness. And if she didn't stop now, she would lose herself completely. That night, as the streetlights flickered on, Ayana made a promise to herself. This time would be different. She would no longer sacrifice her peace for people who never appreciated her. She would no longer allow her life to be controlled by guilt and manipulation. For the first time, Ayana chose herself. And that choice was her breaking point. Ayana returned home from the park with a new strength inside her. She no longer felt like the helpless daughter her family thought she was. What they didn't know was that, while they had been busy using her, she had quietly been building her own life behind the scenes. Her family still saw her as the responsible one who worked long hours just to survive, but they had no idea how far she had come. Months earlier, Ayana had opened a savings account in her own name, one that no one in her family knew about. She had been setting money aside every month, no matter how small, determined to create a safety net for herself. Over time, the account grew into something bigger than she ever imagined. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to give her security, enough to make her feel like she had choices. On top of that, Ayana had just received a major promotion at work. She had gone from being a regular employee to a team lead, with a better salary and more respect. Her family never asked about her career because they only cared about what she could provide. But Ayana had quietly been climbing the ladder, step by step. Her new role opened doors to even greater opportunities, and with her savings combined, she was no longer the weak link they assumed. She also had connections now. Through her job, Ayana had met people who valued her skills and respected her as a professional. She had mentors who guided her, colleagues who supported her, and even legal advisors who had once told her, "Never let anyone misuse your name or credit." Those words echoed in her mind, and she realized she had resources her parents didn't know she could reach for. Sitting alone in her room, Ayana pulled out a notebook and began writing. She made a list, her savings, her promotion, her contacts, her options. Piece by piece, she saw the picture forming. Her family thought they had trapped her with the wedding bill, but they didn't realize she wasn't powerless. She had been preparing for this kind of storm without even knowing it. For years, Ayana had been the quiet provider, the one who carried everyone else's burdens. Now she was ready to shift the balance. She no longer needed their approval, their fake love, or their constant guilt trips. With her hidden strength, she began planning her response. And this time, she would make sure they finally saw who she truly was, not their victim, but a woman in full control of her own life. The day of Nia's wedding arrived with all the noise and glamour her parents had dreamed of. Guests filled the decorated hall. Music played, and laughter echoed everywhere. Nia walked around glowing with pride, greeting everyone like a queen. while their parents stood tall, showing off the expensive venue as if they had worked for it. To the guests, it looked like the perfect celebration. But Ayana knew the truth, and she carried it quietly inside her heart. She sat near the back, watching, her face calm but her mind sharp. She had already decided. She would not save them this time. They had chosen to betray her, and now they would face the weight of their own actions. Halfway through the evening, just as the ceremony was about to begin, the atmosphere shifted. The venue manager, a serious-looking man in a dark suit, walked briskly into the hall. His voice was firm as he called out, "Can I speak to the family of the bride?" The music lowered, whispers spread quickly, and eyes turned toward Ayana's parents. Everyone watched as the manager explained in a clear voice, "The payment for this venue has been declined. The balance remains unsettled. Unless it is paid immediately, we will have no choice but to stop the event." Gasps filled the room. Guests turned to one another, shocked. Nia's mother quickly stepped forward, her hands shaking, but instead of facing the manager, she spun around and pointed directly at Ayana. "She will handle it. It's her responsibility." Her father nodded silently, avoiding the shameful stares of the guests. And just like that, dozens of eyes turned on Ayana, waiting. Nia stomped her foot, her voice sharp and full of entitlement. "Ayana, do something. Don't embarrass me on my wedding day. You've ruined enough already, fix it now." Ayana slowly rose to her feet. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel weak under their pressure. Her voice was calm, steady, and louder than the whispers around her. "No. I will not fix this. I never agreed to pay for any of this. If the venue hasn't been paid, that is not my problem." The hall went silent. Guests stared, stunned that she had dared to refuse. Her parents' faces turned red. Nia's eyes filled with rage, but Ayana did not flinch. She simply sat back down, folding her arms. In that moment, the power shifted. The family who once controlled her through guilt now stood exposed before everyone. And Ayana, for the first time, felt truly free. The silence after Ayana's refusal didn't last long. Her mother's voice exploded through the hall, sharp and furious. "How dare you embarrass us like this, Ayana? After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." Her father's anger soon followed, his voice trembling but loud. "You are a disgrace, standing here, refusing to help your own family in front of everyone. Shame on you." Their words cut the air like knives, but Ayana stayed seated, her face calm, her eyes steady. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, whispering among themselves. Some looked at Ayana with pity, others with judgment. But Ayana didn't lower her head like she would have in the past. She sat straight, refusing to let their fury break her this time. Then Nia's turn came. She had been standing in her beautiful wedding dress, waiting for everything to revolve around her. When she realized her big moment was slipping away, she broke down. Tears rolled down her face as she wailed, "You're ruining my wedding. Why are you always against me? Why can't you just let me have this one day? You're jealous, Ayana. You've always been jealous of me." Her sobs echoed through the hall, and her bridesmaids rushed to comfort her. The guests watched the drama unfold, some shaking their heads at the scene. To many, it looked like a family collapsing right before their eyes. Her parents didn't care about the crowd anymore. They screamed at Ayana openly, throwing every insult they could find. "Ungrateful child," her mother yelled. "You will regret this," her father added, pointing a finger at her. It was ugly, humiliating, and raw. But through it all, Ayana didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. Instead, she let them shout, let them reveal themselves in front of everyone. For once, she didn't carry their shame on her shoulders. She wasn't the guilty one here, and she wanted the whole world to see it. The hall grew heavy with tension. Some guests began leaving quietly, unwilling to witness the scene any longer. Others stayed wide-eyed, almost in disbelief at how far the family was falling apart. Through all the chaos, Ayana's strength became clear. She wasn't the selfish daughter they painted her to be. She wasn't the jealous sister they accused her of being. She was a woman who had given, and now she was drawing the line. And as her parents and sister continued to unravel in front of everyone, Ayana sat there like a rock in the storm. For the first time, she was free from the weight of their manipulation. The guilt that once chained her heart no longer had power over her. The hall was still buzzing with whispers, the tension so heavy that even the music had stopped. Everyone thought the wedding was finished, that Nia's big day had collapsed in the most humiliating way possible. Her parents were still arguing with the venue manager, begging for more time, while Nia sobbed in the corner, her perfect dress now soaked with tears. All eyes kept drifting back to Ayana, waiting to see if she would finally give in. But instead of caving, Ayana stood up slowly, her calmness making people lean in closer. She looked at her family, her voice steady but sharp enough for everyone to hear. You wanted me to spend $10,000 on a wedding I never agreed to. You thought my life was yours to use. But while you were busy taking from me, I was building something of my own. Gasps spread through the guests. Her parents froze, unsure what she meant. Ayana reached into her bag and pulled out a simple folder. Inside were documents she had prepared long before this day. She held them up high and said, "This is the deed to my new house, fully paid for, in my name alone. While you've been drowning me in guilt and debt, I chose to invest in my own future." The room erupted with murmurs. People who had been judging her minutes ago were now staring in shock, some even nodding in approval. Her mother's mouth fell open, her father's face turned pale, and Nia looked at her like she had just been betrayed all over again. Ayana didn't stop there. "I will not waste my life covering your debts or funding dreams that are not mine. I worked for years to stand on my own feet, and today, I'm showing you that I did it. I am free, and I will never let you chain me again." For the first time, her parents had no words. They couldn't scream, couldn't twist the story, because the proof was in her hands. Their carefully built image crumbled right there in front of the guests. Nia tried to speak, but her voice cracked into silence. Ayana tucked the papers back into her folder, her head held high. Around the hall, people began whispering not about her being selfish but about her being strong, smart and brave. Her family stood stuck in their mess of unpaid bills and public shame, while Ayana walked out of that hall with her dignity intact. She had turned the tables completely. What was supposed to be her downfall became her moment of power, and everyone who witnessed it would never forget it. The room had fallen into complete silence. The same guests who once pitied Ayana were now staring at her with wide eyes, as if they had just witnessed something unforgettable. Her parents stood frozen, their faces red with humiliation, while Nia sat slumped in her gown, her makeup ruined by tears. Every single person was waiting to hear what Ayana would say next, and she did not disappoint. She turned slowly to face them, her posture straight, her eyes sharp, but her tone calm and unshaken. "You wanted me to pay for Nia's dream," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "But I chose to pay for mine. From now on, my life is mine to protect." Her words cut through the air like a blade. There was no shouting, no anger, just quiet strength that left her family speechless. Her father opened his mouth to reply, but no sound came out. Her mother looked around desperately, hoping someone would step in to save them from the shame. Nia buried her face in her hands, unable to meet Ayana's gaze. But Ayana didn't wait for any response. She gathered her folder, lifted her chin, and began walking toward the exit. The click of her heels echoed across the floor, each step heavier than all the shouting that had filled the hall minutes earlier. Guests moved aside, whispering in awe, some even clapping softly as she passed. Her parents were left standing in the middle of the wreckage they had created, angry, humiliated, and powerless. For the first time, they had to face the weight of their own greed without Ayana carrying it for them. Nia's wedding dream had turned into a nightmare, and there was no one left to save it. Ayana didn't look back. She stepped out into the fresh air, free at last, her heart lighter than it had ever been. Inside, her family wrestled with the consequences of years of using her. Outside, Ayana walked away with her dignity, her future, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had chosen herself. That was the moment everyone would remember. Not the ruined wedding, not the screaming, but the woman who finally took her power back.